collaboration with the Cyprus Mail, this is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
This week's programme is all about the environment, with calls to expand a controversial quarry in the Paphos district, despite 3 refusals by the relevant committees to allow it.
Some people, and I'm referring to 2 specific quarrying companies, are actually, and I have full knowledge of what I'm saying, they're actually lying, so there is no lack of materials right now.
And the government also comes under fire for not implementing inspections to follow up and enforce environmental laws.
That is my biggest concern with regards to environmental law. My biggest complaint with this government, because they don't have inspections. They don't do enforcement of the law.
Well, there are several more environmental stories in the news this week. On Wednesday, the Cabinet decided that the Akamas Plan would be put back until September so that there could be more discussion on certain issues. And meanwhile, the centre of Nicosia outside the presidential palace was brought to a standstill by a demonstration by quarry workers who blocked the roads with their lorries. Joining us to talk about those issues from the Federation of Environmental Organisations in Cyprus is Klitos Papastilianou. Klitos, let's start, if we may, with the quarry, because that's been on the cards for a while now, and it seems that the Akamas Plan is not actually going to allow the extension of the quarry at Androlikou, but the people who run it say they're running out of materials. So are we just building too much? We're destroying the environment, that's for sure.
There is a truth behind the claim, but there is also a fallacy behind that claim. So, starting with the decision, the new proposed quarrying zone in Androlikou was rejected 3 times within 3 years. The first one in 2021, the second in 2022, and the third in 2023. The decision was based on the conclusion of both the appropriate assessment focusing on the impacts on Natura 2000 areas and the strategic environmental assessment examining the wider environmental impacts of the local plan. And the conclusion was that the creation of this new quarry zone will bring severe, negative and irreversible impacts on both the protected area, Natura 2000 area, and I'm referring to the so-called satellite area of the gorges of Neo Horio, Androlikou and Drusha, and also significant negative impacts on the wider environment, for example, on the natural landscape, archaeological heritage, and so on. Now, based on this conclusion, the substantial term of the environmental authority is that this zone is rejected, and within 3 years, the mine service will have to conduct a new study on the creation of the new quarrying zone in Paphos, which will include all possible areas in which this zone could be situated. After the submission of this study, the competent committees will examine the study in order to reach a conclusion which of these potential areas has the less impact on nature and environment.
It does seem, therefore, that the authorities basically agree that we need to keep quarrying. I'm interested to know, particularly bearing in mind the number of times I've talked to people about the way that building materials from demolitions and so on are not disposed of, why can't that be recycled? I think I saw something recently that one of the universities here has managed to make a robot that can separate building waste so that it can be reused.
Exactly. Before coming to that, just to answer the last point of the previous question. So the substantial term of the environmental opinion says within 3 years. Right now, the existing quarrying zone in Androlikou can cover the needs of the whole Paphos district for at least 5 years. That means that some people, and I'm referring to two specific quarrying companies, are actually, and I have full knowledge of what I'm saying, they're actually lying. So there is no lack of materials right now. This has been ensured for plus 2 years beyond the time frame of conducting, submitting, and evaluating this study. Now I'm coming to the last question. Yes, dear Rosie, there are plenty of things to be done. I think that I would say that you are a specialist on waste management. So let's not forget the basic principles behind waste management. First, we are starting with reducing. The same goes for natural resources and not only waste management. We cannot build 3 marinas in every district. We cannot turn Cyprus into an atoll with wave breaks all along the island. So we need to reduce the use of natural resources. That's the step one. Secondly, we need to promote and strengthen and enforce measures for reusing resources coming from construction and demolition materials, waste. That's not waste. Those are resources that should be reused. And the third one is regarding the alternative areas that I have referred to before. For us, this is important, crucially important. We cannot accept the dilemma Paphos Forest or Androlikou Gorges. There is at least one more alternative, and that is there are 3 quarrying zones in Limassol district, in Moni, Asgada, and Pareklisha. Those could cover the needs of Paphos district, so we should then have as priority areas significantly important ecological areas like Paphos Forest and or Androlikou Gorges.
So what's to be done then? Because it seems that this is, as I say, going to be put off because the whole Akamas Plan is going to be pushed back again until September. And obviously that is to try and accommodate the people who are objecting to it as it stands, and that includes the quarry makers. Why do we need all this quarried material? Is it just that we are constructing far too many things?
Yes. The answer is yes. We are moving far beyond the carrying capacity of this island, both in terms of building into areas that we shouldn't build and destroy, we should protect them, and that also means we are building with materials that we actually don't have and with natural resources that we actually should protect and manage for future generations as well.
It seems to me that the quarry people ought to start looking ahead and thinking that if they're short of natural materials, or will be in 3 or 4 years' time, why don't they go into recycling the waste that's already lying all over the island and start a new business that can keep them going but not use up natural resources?
I fully agree, and I'm moving a step beyond that, and by saying that that goes also for the competent authorities. The competent authorities should also promote, enforce the necessary measures and policies in order to help the private sector move into that direction.
Klidos, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. We're out of time, but thank you very much indeed for joining me. And I do hope that perhaps the new government is going to address this issue, because anybody who goes anywhere near these quarries just sees a deep scar on our landscape, which really isn't doing anybody any good, and it's certainly not good for our biodiversity and natural environment.
Definitely not. We have already endangered a lot, and we should put an end to that story regarding the destruction of Androlikou gorges.
That is Klidos Papastilianou from the Federation of Environmental Organisations in Cyprus.
Keep up to date with events in Cyprus and around the world with the Cyprus News Digest.
In collaboration with the Cyprus Mail, this is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
The biggest achievement of Crime Stoppers has been the ability of the public to be able to give information about crime anonymously.
There's no way I could have kept prostituting without the drugs. There's no way I could have had my body used like a public toilet, because that's actually what prostitution is.
And then the fourth series I started 3 days after I'd won the Oscar, so the whole of the Moloch of the Glen experience was all interplatted with the Gosford Park Oscar experience.
I was working with Ronnie James Dio, and David was going to reform Whitesnake in 2003.
Cyprus was chosen because Cyprus is a stable, peaceful and secure place.
We have to really look closely. What are we doing with children? What are we doing with adolescents? And what are we doing with adults that can help them move into a more literate situation?
The ones that I'm proudest of are the ones that were true discoveries, where we found something we didn't know existed.
Following on from last autumn's ban on several single-use plastic items like cutlery, plates and straws, a new regulation came into force last weekend, cracking down on the use of plastic bags, or at least some plastic bags. It seems in Cyprus we're not very good at doing anything all the way, so I've asked Greens MP Haralambous Theobemtou to join me to clarify which items are banned and which we can still use. Vamos, it's not very clear, is it? Only some bags are banned, but we can still use others.
Yes, okay. If you remember a few years back, we had an urge from the European Union to minimize plastic. And this was actually the start of the 10-year policy on the war on plastics. The first step that we took in Cyprus in order to reduce plastic bags was to actually have them charged at the cashier. So we are talking about the bags that you get at the cashier. Now, the next step that we did in Parliament was to actually not allow plastic bags at the cashiers anymore, not even with the 6 cents. So that came into force on the 18th of February. I know a lot of shops don't actually apply this, but I hope that eventually this will actually be all over the island, so that everybody should know that when you go to the shop, if you are going to buy things that you need the bag, you have to take the bag with you.
Hang on a minute there, Bambos. You said that it became law on the 18th, and some people are still giving out these bags. Where is the punishment for people who are breaking the law? It seems that we pass laws and then everybody just carries on as before.
That is my biggest concern with regards to environmental law, and my biggest complaint with this government, because they don't have inspections. They don't do enforcement of the law. And it's not only this. We have a problem with animal welfare laws. We have problems with waste laws. People throw away all sorts of stuff all over the island. They don't have enforcement of the law. And they don't have it because, in actual fact, when the Anastasiadis came to power, once the contracts of the environment inspectors came to the end, they didn't renew the contract. They don't have outside help. The Department for the Environment has around 40 vacancies, so they cannot implement the law and enforce it.
Well, it can be outsourced, surely. Can't they employ inspectors from elsewhere?
This is what the previous government was doing. Once the contract of these outside inspectors came to an end, they didn't renew anything.
OK, so we're not going to anytime soon, presumably, unless the new government takes its position seriously, we're not going to see anything change in terms of plastic bags being handed out at supermarkets. Now let's look at the other things that you mentioned in the email that you sent me, because it was on all sorts of other small packaging and non-essential packaging. Tell me about that.
Okay, one of the things that will come next is that they are going to try to minimize all packaging, of course, all one-use packaging. And one of the things that will come into force in 2030 would be, for instance, the small bottles that you see in hotel rooms. In the bar, you see these small bottles. These would be actually phased out. Another thing that would be phased out is the packaging that you see in vegetables, either washed vegetables or not. Sometimes when you go to the supermarket, you see vegetables, salad, certain fruits, you see them pre-packaged on the shelf. So you pick it up and you leave quickly without having to weigh them. So that will also go out. And in addition, what they are going to try to minimize, I don't know how they are going to do this, is the fact that they are going to limit the amount of plastic bags in total per head of population for every country. So we are talking about the plastic bags that you actually get in the shops where you put your fruit, or the plastic bags that you buy from the shelves in the road. So these are the next step later on.
How is that going to work? Because it's impossible, surely, to say that each person in the population is allowed X number of bags. How are you going to measure it?
I think it's an indicator. It won't be an exact implementation. It's an indicator. And you have to understand that when we say we have to remove the plastic bags, we're not talking about removing bags in general, plastic bags. So this is a motive for the industry to come up with biodegradable bags. And you find these already in the shops on the island. Also, if you go to big supermarkets, some of them have these nets that you can reuse. You use them in the fruit section where you get the fruits, the vegetables, you put them in a net. There is a place to stick the fries. You take them home and you reuse the net the next time you go to the supermarket.
I've been doing that for years, Paphos.
Yeah,
it's very simple to do, but we've still got those very thin plastic bags in the fruit and vegetable sections, and I understand they're also going to continue to be used when it comes to things like meat and fish products.
Yes, but as I was saying, I think what they are going to do next is to force everybody to have those bags, instead of being plastic, to be biodegradable. There is a European standard for biodegradable plastic, and I think they're going to enforce that.
Tell me a little bit about how you would describe biodegradable plastic.
Biodegradable plastic in inverted commas plastic. A biodegradable bag is a bag that is made up from organic material, which means that if you, for instance, bury this on the ground, and you go there after 4 or 5 months, there will be nothing there, because it's made out of wheat and starch.
Okay, because we did have for years what people were calling biodegradable plastic bags, which just broke down into, well, tiny particles of plastic.
Yes, I remember those. That was a hoax. And you're talking about the oxo-degradable. They fell into pieces, but it was still plastic.
Yeah, it was still plastic, it's just that you couldn't see it, so it was actually even more dangerous than it was if you could see it and do something about it. Do we have any recycling of plastic bags in Cyprus?
For the moment, plastic bags should go into the PMD, the plastic metal and recycling.
Even if they're dirty?
They should go there and they get recycled, yes. But we need to be careful, we don't leave stuff in the bag. The bag should be empty when you put it in recycling.
Yeah, but what about if it's dirty? A lot of times, I mean, for example, I know where we do our recycling of cans, they come to us in plastic bags, but very often they're very dirty because they've been contaminated with the fluids that are in the cans we recycle. Can those be recycled?
And those, I also put them in the PMD. If it can be recycled, it will. If it's not, it will go for energy in the cement factory inside. So this gets sorted out.
Right, now then, since I've got you on the programme this week, let's talk as well about all the other upcoming things. You talked about global food waste being reduced by 2030, and a moment ago you also said about the ban on small packaging being by 2030. That's an awful long time down the road.
Yes, there is the plan is there. It was published before 2020, and the reason why it takes so long is because they want the industry to be ready, so that when I say remove the bottles from the hotel, there should be a solution, and there is a solution. When I published this article, I got companies that contacted me in Cyprus, and they said, yes, we know this, we are doing this now. What the solution is, they put this dispensable bottle where the dispenser, where you put the shampoo in the dispenser, and you push it and you get out of it as much as you like.
Well, I thought a lot of hotels were already doing that, so why are we so concerned? Are there many hotels that are still sticking to these horrible little plastic bottles?
Yes. I'm not talking about only Cyprus, in Europe as well.
Yeah, but we're concerned about Cyprus for now. What sort of changes are we encouraging in our hotels?
A lot of the hotels, they are urged to actually apply environmental management. For instance, the standard, the 14,000, ISO 14,000 standard. You have to understand that from this year, it came into force the new directive on the sustainability of businesses. And it's going to cause a lot of problems to companies that actually ignore this. And the difficulty in Cyprus is that, again, the directive came into force, but we have yet to change the local law, the national law. And the last time we changed it was the non-financial reporting bit of the law for companies. And now that gets enforced with extra requirements on sustainability, governance, and the environment. So that is one thing that they need to do. But in general, one has to understand that we have new targets for recycling, and the only way to get those targets is to actually change the way we manage waste, especially domestic waste. And that is the reason why about 4 or 5 months ago, the law was changed, and it's full of dates. For instance, from up to the end of the year, all the local authorities, they have to come up with a plan that will cover the recycling of paper, plastic, metal, and drink cartons. Plus, we are going to have recycling of electric as well. The WE directive will come into force by law everywhere. And by the end of the year, every local authority should be ready and have a plan on how to collect and process organic waste. So we need to have a bag outside the house for the payment, a bag for the PMD, some sort of a waste bin for the organic waste, kitchen remains, potato peels, and all the organic waste that we produce in the kitchen. And the local authorities will actually come and collect this by law, free of charge, but we will have a system which is a pay-as-you-throw, so that the rest of the waste that you bring out of the house should be in a bag that you buy from the local authority.
And that will be the general waste, yes? But all the other waste you mentioned will be collected separately?
And free of charge, yes. So we will buy a bag that will cost around €1, maybe less than €1, it might be more than €1, depending on the local authority. That will actually be charged so that people will actually, when they pay and they throw, for everything you throw, you pay. That they use widely in Europe.
And what will those bags be made of?
It's not in the law, but if we proceed with the plastics policy of Europe, eventually I think this will actually be changed into a box, a bin, rather than a bag. But we have yet to see that. And I need to explain also that there is a heavy penalty for those that do not recycle. This is the plan. Everything should be ready from all the local authorities by the end of the year this year. And the Department for the Environment will actually inspect this, do the changes, consult with the local authorities. And when we have the local elections in May 24, a month after, this will actually come into force in June 2024.
Let me ask you one last thing, Paphos, and that is, how is all of this going to work, do you think? Since if you look anywhere in Cyprus, particularly in remote areas, there is fly tipping everywhere of huge items, of sofas, of fridges, of washing machines. If we can't sort that out, how do we expect to sort out small bags of household rubbish?
Exactly. I think we've never been in a worse situation that we have now with regards to the waste that ends up in nature. It's one of the biggest complaints with the government is that they knew that it's happening and they didn't do anything to actually stop it. Nothing. And I'm very angry about this. I'm very angry because they knew that this is happening, they knew it for years, and they did absolutely nothing to stop it.
So once again, we're talking about law enforcement, because it is illegal, is it not, to take your stuff and dump it in the countryside?
It's illegal, either to dump your own stuff or dump construction waste. But unfortunately, as I said before, they didn't do anything to stop it, anything serious.
Have you any hope that the new government might address some of these issues?
Well, I am actually working on a document to visit the new Minister for the Environment and bring all these problems to his attention and hope that he will actually do something this time.
Well, I guess we'll all hope the same thing and follow it up. I've no doubt we'll talk again, Paphos. Many thanks for your time.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
That is the head of the Greens Party in Cyprus, Paphos Theobentou. Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.